You're listening to English Made Simple. This is episode 43, número 43. Hello, what's up? Welcome to episode number 43 of English Made Simple. My name is Milena. Thank you for joining me. I call this one a short and sweet episode. It's released midweek and it is supposed to be 5 minutes or less, but sometimes it goes over 5 minutes. Here I share something that will be of value to you, and if you have any questions, any burning questions that you really want to ask me, please send me your questions via email or ask them in my Facebook group, English Made Simple. And I will answer them here in short and sweet. Excellent. And today, I hope to answer Carlos's question, what is Melbourne City like? Can we hear something about Melbourne? Yes. Excellent question, Carlos. Thank you. To answer this question, I would like to compare Melbourne to Sydney. There's always some sort of friendly rivalry between these two Australian cities. Sydneysiders and Melbournians like to make fun of each other, okay? You know what I mean, like comparing the standard of living, public transport, nightlife, and stuff like that. To help me prepare for this episode, I went around and I asked a few of my friends. I asked them why they like living in Melbourne and if they would ever move to Sydney. Basically, what are their thoughts about Melbourne and Sydney? Mind you, my friends live in Melbourne, so their views may appear a little bit biased here. The findings of my short survey may be one-sided and skewed towards Melbourne. Just letting you know in advance. So here are some things that my friends had to say about these two cities. My friends agree that Melbourne is the fashion capital of Australia. You know, just like New York in the US and Paris in France and Milan in Italy. Well, we're not going to compare Melbourne to those cities, but Melbourne is very fashionable. And you know what? It's not so expensive. I found Santiago to be more expensive. Both Melbourne and Sydney are multicultural. There are different ethnic groups living in both cities, making it diverse in culture and food. But I think food tastes way better in Melbourne. The main topic of conversation for many people living in Melbourne is the weather. If you like cooler weather, come to Melbourne. If you like warmer weather, go to Sydney. Like today, for example, in Melbourne we had rain, wind and hail. Estuvo granizando o lluvia con granizo. That's what hail is. We had hail in one day. We had 4 different seasons in one day in Melbourne. Yep, it happens. It can happen anytime. So my advice to you, Carlos, bring a jacket if you're coming to Melbourne. A lot of Latinos like to live in warmer states in Australia, like Western Australia, New South Wales and Queensland. Another thing, my friends agree on this. The cost of living is higher in Sydney than Melbourne. Sydney is more expensive to live in than Melbourne. By the way, Sydney is not the capital of Australia, by the way. The capital is Canberra. But we're not going to talk about Canberra because it's boring. Sydney is also a bigger city, so it's more crowded. Lots of people around, making it difficult even to drive. And that's why the traffic is shocking in Sydney. It's easier to drive in Melbourne than Sydney. Sydney is way too busy. Melbourne is the sports capital of Australia. Melbourne hosts different sporting events like cricket, Formula 1, tennis, AFL. Now we have soccer, A-League, ice hockey, and so on. But Sydney is famous for its white sand beaches and surf beaches. Bondi Beach is one of the famous ones. A lot of tourists visit Bondi Beach, and it's only 20 minutes away from Sydney City, whereas Melbourne doesn't have surf beaches. The closest one is almost 2 hours driving. If you like surfing, then Sydney is for you. My friends in Sydney refer to Melbourne as Mel-boring. Boring means aburrido. And to them I say whatever. I beg to differ. Melbourne has a lot of fun festivals. There's always something on in Melbourne. There are a lot of events, a lot of festivals on the Federation Square. That's the main plaza in the city in Melbourne. It's called Federation Square. And, you have a lot of different festivals, including the International Jazz Festival, for example. That's what makes Melbourne great. And Melbourne has been voted as one of the most livable cities in the world. And 6 times in a row. Melbourne is the world's most livable city for a 6th consecutive year. Yes, including this year, guys. And hopefully that answers your question, Carlos. Until next time, guys, it's been a pleasure. Hasta la próxima.